You're out there doing something that a lot of our listeners probably aren't really aware of, maybe don't even know that it exists. And we're going to get into all that stuff, the day-to-day on your business. But can you just start back maybe in Afghanistan and give us a little bit of your origination story? Because it's pretty wild.
Yeah, thanks for asking. And I have to just say, it's super fun to be on the program because we are so passionate about what we do, and very rarely do we have an audience of all dog owners and lovers and working dogs in particular. So I don't think I've ever had this opportunity. So I just want to thank you again. Yes, the origination story is hysterical and fantastic and kind of not what one would expect. I met my former husband in Afghanistan at 2004, I believe. And if you can believe it, I wasn't a dog person at all. A condition of marriage initially was that we would not have a dog. I lost.
What were you doing in Afghanistan?
It sounds sexier than it was. I was a junior policy advisor to President Karzai. So, State Department had pulled back a lot of its assets at that point in time, and they began using private contractors. So I was seconded to the chief of staff, in the office of the president through a small contract on legal and judicial reform. So that's crazy in and of itself.
It is. So you're over there and you meet your husband and you do not like dogs.
Yes. Well, I started to spend some time with some of the dogs that were on their explosive detection teams in support of their operation, supporting Karzai. But a condition of marriage at the time was no dogs. So the fast forward of that is when you leave Kabul, Nairobi seems like a really normal place to set up shop and start a family. So we joke that we had a FedEx family. We left Afghanistan, moved to Nairobi, had twins, and started a company in 1 calendar year. I can promise I don't recommend it. It's a lot. But very shortly thereafter, we had started a protection company, a security company called Ridgeback at the time. And we did protection advising and training. And very quickly thereafter, we desperately needed protection for our own family. I was having twin babies, and I did not necessarily want to carry a firearm in defense of myself. Adds a lot of layers to that scenario, particularly living overseas. And so I actually like to say we imported 2 family protection dogs from an entity in North America, and it was just fast and furious insofar as we appreciated that this product needed to be bred out of necessity. And very quickly thereafter, we purchased a breeding program, sent a number of our Kenyan handlers across to North America to be trained up, and it became one of our biggest product lines.
So you kind of glossed over this. I just want to back up for a second. So you said a few things like you were shooting BB guns and you were dropping nuclear bombs there. You went from Afghanistan to Kenya. In the process, had 2 babies at one time, which I talk about all the time because I have twins too, which is no small thing. Realized at some point over there, or just throughout the course of your life at that point, like, okay, now you have these little babies to protect. You have yourself to protect. You're in Africa. The gun ownership thing over there is a totally different ball game. And on top of that, you were honest with yourself and said, is that the path I want to take? And so you started looking for other options and ended up going, maybe a protection dog is the way to go?
Yeah, you said that much more succinctly than I did. But yeah, at the end of the day, your life is, many parts of Kenya, East Africa, Africa in general, are really considered non-permissive environments. The stakes are very high. Carjacking is rampant. Home invasions are rampant. The haves versus the have-nots there's a massive disparity there. And I have to be really honest. I could have carried a firearm. One has to really look at themselves in the mirror and ascertain if they would feel comfortable using that, and that you're going to live with that burden for the rest of your life. And so the beauty of a protection dog for me at the time was I had 2 newborn babies in car seats in the back of a Land Rover. The beauty was I had to be focused on driving, number 1, but number 2, be focused on my kiddos. So the beauty of a highly trained, stable protection asset is that dog is ever vigilant when you're just being aware. I had to concentrate on the road and the babies. And so I had 2 dogs in my Land Rover at any point in time, but it allowed me to focus on the road and what I was doing, because the dog's picking up on everything that's going on around you. And so it was a security asset that simply could not be replicated in any other way. It's fascinating because, I will say that parts of America are like Kenya insofar as people focus on fortifying their home. They think about being at their home, getting security walls, systems for security, fences, alarm systems. But most of us spend less hours per day in our home than we do out and about in our offices, going to the grocery store, picking up kids from school, going to the office. And so the beauty of a protection asset is that if that dog can travel with you everywhere that you go, it's a 24/7, ever vigilant guardian angel.
Yeah.
I mean, you cannot replicate that.
That's the way you're putting that is it's essentially security on autopilot. And that's I've never really thought about it that way, because you said that, everybody thinks, oh, my dog starts barking at home when somebody's walking up or something, but you don't think about having it with you all the time. And of course, there's a big issue in this country with conceal and carry, and some people think you shouldn't have it, and some people think you should. I'm a huge Second Amendment guy, but I'm also honest with myself. I'm like, I don't trust myself to carry, so I don't have a conceal and carry. I really don't feel like I need it anyway, but I love the option to do that, but I also love the option to say, maybe I'm not the person that should do that. Is there another way to go about this? And you found that way. And was this because, you kind of mentioned, you weren't a dog person. You lived in some wild places through some, I have to imagine you just didn't feel safe all the time in the places you were at. And so you probably saw really well-trained dogs working in some situations, either in Afghanistan or when you got to Kenya and went, was it just like, was there like an eye-opening moment, or was there something where you were like, this is the thing, this is something I'm interested in, and it could become a part of my life?
Well, because we started the company so quickly thereafter, it's a great question. I went from an individual who wasn't into having a dog. It was mostly because I had allergies to dogs, and I'd gotten poison ivy from a dog in first grade. And so you have a pretty natural aversion when you're covered head to toe in poison ivy about not petting a dog thereafter. However, what became, when you have a life event, or if you're scared for your safety, you can suspend your disbelief for a moment that a dog can actually be stable, social, obedient, and also your best protector. So your best friend and your best protector. And I had a need. And so very quickly thereafter, we invested in a breeding program. If I could be the convert, someone who said that we would never have dogs in the house. And then, I have a great story about my kids playing on the, on the carpet as babies. And I had 9 protection dogs in the house at one time. And I was like, just try us. It would be great to see what transpired. But you don't want to bring ego to that mix. And so what we started doing at Svalinn, we spent a lot of years looking for dogs that would be appropriate. And here was the thing, that the whole working dog world has changed so dramatically in the last 5, 7, 10 years, because let's just be honest, before Iraq and Afghanistan, the general population was not really highly aware of working dogs, detection dogs, apprehension dogs, dual purpose dogs. They might have been out there and there were law enforcement dogs and people knew about canine units, but our whole understanding as a world population and as Americans has changed dramatically over the last couple of years, because we see service members returning with their service dogs. We see seeing eye dogs. We see hearing assistance dogs. We certainly know about the sport dogs and hunting dogs. This marketplace has expanded so dramatically in a really short period of time. It's mind-boggling. But our concept at Svalinn was that you should be able to take the pointiest end of the spear when it comes to a dual-purpose dog. A detection dog, a dog that can protect you no matter what in any situation. And its senses are so highly refined that it will respond in necessary force to any potential threat that could come near to your family. That can exist at the same time as livability, huggability, stability, sociability. It should just be a pet 99.9% of the time. But if God forbid you ever need that capability, it is there, and it is so ingrained in the dog, and you are such a trained unit together that dog allows you to just operate in your everyday life, and it's vigilant on your behalf. Mm-hmm. So that type of thinking didn't really exist very much in the marketplace before we created Svalinn. And so it was a tall order insofar as taking the pointiest end of the spear, but breeding, raising, and training a family protection asset from, we have all of our dogs in-house. So we impact every aspect of a dog's life. We know their grandparents. We know their great-grandparents. We bred their moms. We bred their dads. We know how their uncles were with kids. Because we breed, raise, and train in-house, we know every aspect of that dog's life. And so when it goes out the door to a family at 2.5 years of age, it is a turnkey protection asset that is stable, obedient, loving, and it's just your best friend and your best protector. It's got the capabilities if God forbid you ever needed it. But at the end of the day, most of these dogs, they're just deterrents. Mm-hmm, you know, mm-hmm. People want to hear sexy stories about dogs deploying in defense of their families. We have 2, maybe, in a 15-year history. When you have a trained protection asset that's thinking and discerning by your side, you're a harder target than anyone around you. Yep. And so we don't need to tell boastful stories about, protection, because quite honestly, there haven't been very many situations. Mm-hmm. And so it was really a unique concept. We started the company 15 years ago, and it's kind of insane. Like, I'm the dog person now, and I wasn't really seeking to be the dog person, but in a way, it's a natural progression, because what I love about our company is, we're very female centric. Most of our canine handlers are women. At the end of the day, many of our canine owners, Svalinn canine owners, are going to be women. Families invest in the asset, but very often dad's away and doing other things. So you have to have dogs that bond up really quickly to women and children, because that's our bread and butter. We can do all the pointy end of the spear stuff, like the law enforcement, like the special operations dogs. That's all part of our wheelhouse, the scent detection. But really, the market that Svalinn has carved out over the last 15 years, but really in America, we've only been back in America 6 years. In a very short period of time, there's a very discerning demand within the marketplace for a highly trained, stable, obedient, loving protection asset that's mature, thinking, and discerning. Mm-hmm. And that's where we've really carved out our niche. We can do all the other sexy stuff. It's cool. There's a lot of workability in these dogs. And I joke that many of our canine owners probably use 10 to 15% of the dog's capabilities. There's so much more than meets the eye. But they're quiet professionals, and they don't have to be boastful about it. Yeah. They just want that forever family connection with their family. And it's a really beautiful thing when it comes together.